But now I am going to be calling on to Ben to join us on stage. A huge round of applause from Ben. Ben, this is over to you.
Thank you.
How's the energy, guys? Low, high? Now I'm getting the energy like the first few rows again. The last few rows. Yes? No? Yes.
Wonderful.
Huge round of applause to Ben, and here we go.
Wonderful. Hello, everyone. I'm Ben. I'm leading architecture and engineering excellence at CodeWalnut, and this is 10x Workflows. So unfortunately, this is going to be about AI agents. I'm sure you've all seen amazing things already. And I'm going to start by talking about the inspiration. So one of my first engineering managers was a guy called Alex McGovern. He doesn't know I'm talking about him, so please don't sue me, Alex. So Alex was hands down one of the most prolific engineers I ever met. He cranked out features, refactored code bases, and improved every aspect of our code base and architecture on a weekly basis. He seemed to code every single day, and he's probably one of the only people that I've ever met that truly met the mark of a 10x developer. Before AI, he would have his split mechanical keyboards that he'd have his hands over with hotkeys mapped to everything you can imagine. From his email would be a couple of clicks, to entire React components being able to be built just off of hotkeys. So what was special about Alex is he really zeroed in on systems design, smooth data flows, and testing what really counted. He would toil over a weekend over what was wrong with our data flow, where something wasn't efficient, where we would be fetching data that we didn't need, and he was ruthless about just getting what we needed and displaying the minimal amount to the front end. Oh, can we go forward? Wonderful. So today we have AI-assisted development. People are probably very familiar with this. We have Cursor, and they're developing new features all the time. For me, my ideal workflow is to talk to Grok and ideate a feature. So I would take my templates, I would give it to Grok, I would talk through features, and I would never believe what it said. So everything that it said, I would check the sources, and I would verify, is it telling me the truth? Oftentimes, sometimes it is, but I have a healthy distrust for everything AI. The great thing about development is it's obviously improving so quickly. We have browser automation. With MCP tools, you're able to connect to the browser, see the browser, dev console, and debug extremely quickly. We have access to our favorite tools. You'll see Figma, you'll see GitHub, you'll see N8N, which I know you've seen some of today. And the last one is something I'm going to be talking about, which is called Linear. So when I started preparing for this talk, what I really wanted was to build an AI Kanban board that would allow me to simply create a task, be the product owner, and then assign to an agent and effectively go from meeting to meeting, which I seem to be in more and more of. And this is sort of a thing that I'm sure many of you, as you go up your career, your calendars get bigger, you have less time to build, which as an engineer hurts my soul. Oh, we're going forward? Nice. Come on, let's go. So, let's talk about our first 10x workflow, rapid context building. So what I'm going to show you today is how we're going to take agent skills and our knowledge base and build context extremely quickly. I don't want to spend time writing context that I absolutely don't have to. The context that doesn't really matter are your team's best practices that you should have already defined, the conventions of your code base, and any template files that you may have created already. I don't want to have to give that to the agent every single time I want to get a simple thing done. The context that I should be giving it is the context that I uniquely know and I probably should be writing documentation for. And also, when you're actually building with agents, you really should have done your research before you even type into this box. You should already have a plan about how you want to build, the technologies you want to use, and the quirks that potentially AI is going to run into that you don't want it to run into. So what is an agent skill? So if you look at this file, this is a cursor rule. Claude has just released skills, but I just call them the same thing. A skill is a way of giving a step-by-step instruction to an agent to perform a task. You'll see here is some TypeScript best practices. It's going to get a lot more exciting, I promise you. And you have a few options of how you apply these rules. You can always apply a rule, which means anytime cursor or the agent decides to do a task, it will always apply a set of rules. You can apply it intelligently, so you see the description there. This file, by the way, is just an enhanced Markdown file. So it's called the MDC file. And what it means is you can have some YAML type config that allows you to configure the cursor's rules. I'm sure this will be on every agent before long. So if you want to apply a rule intelligently, you need a description. And when cursor kind of believes that I need to use this, if you give it a bit of context, it will probably start to use it. For example, if you wanted to open a PR, you could create an intelligent rule that says, when you go to open a PR, use our PR template, or use an agent template. We also have a knowledge base. Well, everyone should. I've seen a few talks where we've talked about this, and it's a way of effectively giving the agent the context you need, and ideally it would be some type of version-controlled file. I personally prefer to have a .agents folder, and you can see here that I've already started to create roles for my agents. You can see here the builder file with some example components, example component and best practices, testing example file and best practices, and some best practices in general, conventions of your code base, think the way you name files and folders. Definition of done, the verification steps that your agent goes through like you would. And there's a role file as well. So this is the builder agent. It has a description. I apply it intelligently, but I also can tag it. And it has a role assignment where it says you are a builder agent and your primary focus is implementing feature code. We want clean and maintainable code. Ideally, your naming is on point. It's a long descriptive variable name. And you've thought about accessibility from the start and sensibly thought about performance considerations. I've outlined some key responsibility, and the magic really is in the references, where you outline the workflow, the conventions it should be following for this particular role, best practices, definition of done. Now, building context and execution should be as simple as this. You tag your builder agent, you fetch your active task from your Jira board or whatever board you use, complete my active task. Don't just write that, but write the context that you believe as a developer based on the feature you're building and the unique context that you have thought through and already ideated with your favorite AI. But here's the problem. It's not enough. It's not enough, really, to give context to an agent. It goes off and does the task. And the problem then comes where you look at a typical sprint and the planning is now done by AI. Development is now done by AI. But when I go and meet with teams and I ask them, are you all using AI? They all put their hands up. But when I talk to engineering leaders and ask them, what's the biggest problem with your organization? They all say that everyone's using AI, but when I ask them for 50% more velocity, they can't deliver. But then I go to the development team, the same team that said, all put their hand up and said, we're using agents. I say, has your velocity increased? And they say, yes. Oh, could you commit to 50% more velocity? They all go, oh, I don't think so. Why? Everything's increased except for the QA. Reviews are still manual, and they should be in a way. Your senior engineer should be reviewing your code, and you should be having intelligent conversations about the ways you potentially try to build the PR, the considerations that you've thought of, the different things that you've tried. Where code reviews don't really add a lot of value is when you aren't following the convention. This is typical of a junior developer. They haven't named their file correctly, They haven't used a function that is in your utils folder. Typical things. So the second 10x workflow is the agent-powered QA. And this is an attempt to solve the problem of when your senior developer comes, reviews, suggests changes, and sometimes this review process can take hours at the best, but oftentimes it takes days to deliver a approval on a PR from a senior developer. This hopes to change that. What I hope to do with this 10x workflow is deliver a powerful QA process that goes through a few steps. First, you have a verifier agent. Your verifier agent does a very simple job. It verifies that the PR you have put up is actually the feature ticket that your product manager or engineering manager has set out. The requirements have been met. And if that verification agent fails that, it will flag to you or flag to the agent, and the agent should be able to intelligently iterate until it meets the requirements. Next is the tester agent. When I talk to developers, some of them write tests, but a lot of them don't. I've spent a long time preaching, if you will, about why you should be writing tests. Unit tests are your baseline. They allow you to know what your inputs are and your outputs. It gives you reliability that your code continues to work the way that you expect. End-to-end tests are my preferred method of testing. It actually gives me a safety net and a level of confidence that my actual application continues to work before we push production. I want to know, does our user flows work? Are we able, if for example, we're an airline, we should be able to check in, we should be able to print boarding passes, and we should be able to know that before we push. We shouldn't require an entire QA process with QA engineers that manually test every single deployment before it goes in a testing environment. We shouldn't have to do that. I believe as developers, we should be writing our own end-to-end tests and having ownership over the code that we write and the user experience that we're delivering. That's not so easy. We should have preview deployments on every PR, so it's easy to be able to come in and break things. But in this case, the tester agent does it. In an ideal world, you would have a preview deployment, you would have your Figma design, and it would be married up through theming to be able to tell exactly what has changed and is it intentional. And if it's intentional, the tester can give the green light on that and start to write the tests to cover any gaps. The biggest problem that developers do, even if they write tests, is they don't cover all the edge cases. They don't try and actually break their feature in the UI. I did this relentlessly at Sky, and my team wasn't too happy with me because I'd always find bugs. But the problem was if they'd written their end-to-end tests more thoroughly, I wouldn't have found the bugs. And I don't believe in pushing bugs to production. I believe in getting the user experience right first time because it takes years to build trust with users, and it can take one bad experience to break it. So I've already started to go through this already, validating the PR against issue requirements, and in the verifier agent, you can also check, does it match? And if it has any issues, we flag to builder agent to fix. So how does this work in practice? With a verifier agent, when you open a PR, a GitHub workflow triggers. In my case, I use an N8N workflow, so I'm going to show you in a moment. And the N8N workflow goes through the process of giving the context to the verifier agent to allow it to look at the diff, look at the requirements, and make a concerted effort to make a decision on whether we should be approving it or not. Hopefully it works. Oh, good, we're doing it. Wonderful. Oh, wrong one. So this is our first workflow. I'm going to try it. Can I get rid of this? Yeah, wonderful. You can see here, after the GitHub workflow activates, we fetch a bunch of stuff. We fetch the verifier role, which sits inside of that knowledge base, so it's consistent, version controlled, and it can be updated at any time. We fetch conventions, we fetch best practices, we fetch the PR diff, and linear I'm going to get to, but effectively you can imagine this is your Jira task or whatever it is. You merge all of it, you flatten to an object to make it easy, and you come in here and you give it the verify. You can add whatever you want here. You can add the role, you can add the conventions, and after that, it will post an approval comment. The approval comment will look something like this. Doesn't take too much. Now, if we come back, oh, I pressed the wrong button. There we go. After we get the approval, it moves on. Tester agent. As I said, determine if the UI elements have changed. If it has, nothing's changed, it should just approve. If we're not changing UI elements, we don't necessarily need a tester. But we should ensure that we have strong test coverage for components, and the UI flows are covered using across-the-board tests, unit integration end-to-end. Again, a GitHub workflow. So when you actually see that the verify agent has completed, you can look for the text inside of the PR comments and then trigger the next stage, which is the tester workflow. Let's actually go back to the end-to-end workflow and find our tester. This is a lot simpler. Webhook goes to the PR diff, we extract the diff, get the linear issue, an AI agent prepares, and then we post a subtask to linear. So I think it's time for us to jump into linear. So linear is what I would have built had it not already been created. This is not sponsored by them. Nothing that you see here. I'm not trying to sell you anything. All of this will be available on our GitHub, completely open sourced. Every single end-to-end workflow will be available to you, and we're going to do a workflow or walkthrough that will give you everything, and you should just be able to plug and play any part of this, whether you want the QA pipeline or you want the builder agent, and it should just work for you. Just change your credentials, and it should be able to immediately plug and play. So how do I use this? So you'll have a typical Kanban board. You have a template for a builder agent. You'll fill out your requirements. You'll add your Figma link. You'll add some acceptance criteria. The magic really happens here, though, where I assign my agent. You give it some instructions. I do this so it definitely applies my rule. That's a bit flaky at the best of times. But let's just do one together. Very simple one. Test. I prefer conventional commit, so I just think in that way. Add test for the tabs component. Super simple. And I'll just say what I scream to my team all the time, which is behavior over implementation. Acceptance criteria is coverage of core behaviors, I guess. Leave it like that. Wonderful. We've created our ticket. The magic here is you're going to assign it to yourself. There I am. But inside of linear, you can assign it straight away. Oh, I don't want Copilot. Go cursor. Ah, wonderful. Did it straight away. Amazing. You can see here already cursor is examining our issue. Might take a little while, so I'm just going to talk you through. So cursor will now spin up, and it's already assigned itself the role of a builder agent. It will look at your code base, and it will follow those best practices and conventions that I showed you earlier. It has a definition of done. I'm going to show you that now while it's building, so you have a good idea. So as I said, it starts, this is quite small. Start, rules, builder agent, inside here, best practices. This is where you outline exactly how your code base is built. TypeScript, whatever UI libraries, in this project it's Shad-CN, whatever state management you use, whether it's Zustan or Redux in a bigger application, how you use hooks, thinking about how you do performance, and the types of testing that you like to do. Also good to be able to tag your templates here and any workflow best practice. In every PR template, I always have a definition of done. So it's just a checklist that the agent can go through before it's actually put up PR to conclude, have you done everything that we want you to do? And you see after here, after the verification, I'm putting a PR description here because agents can't seem to add a PR description or a GitHub template themselves. They end up doing something that I don't want. So I ended up creating a workflow that updates the PR description as soon as this file is there, then creates a commit that removes that file. What you end up with is something like this, where the agent has filled out what does this PR do. It will add any screenshots. In this case, it's a test-only PR. They wouldn't do that. And the steps that a viewer can manually check this PR, the steps that a reviewer would go through to manually check this PR. I find this super useful, paired with a deployment link that you'll see here just through Vercel. It makes it easy for anyone to be able to find a feature and be able to run the test themselves manually. The definition of done. So you'll see here it's got a few different sections for each of our agents, and it will check off that we meet the requirement. This is why it's almost like a double check, where it will go through the definition of done, and then it will fill out the definition of done in the PR template. So we can double check it's covering the things that we want it to cover. Here we go, I've gone past this bit. So after we've done the testing, so the testing agent will then have written some tests and added that to the PR as well. The next part is the reviewer agent. So the reviewer agent's job is to think like a senior developer. We're working on a model that ultimately fine-tunes. We will fine-tune a model that is a great coding model, sure, but we'll fine-tune it with the review comments of our best developers, our most senior developers. And we think by fine-tuning the model, we can get to the point where it would review like we would and give the same comments and feedback. So let me just actually this. We review the code based on our sliding standards, and the magic really here is after it's given comments and reviews, you should be able to tag your builder agent and it just iterate for you. So you get to the point where you have a PR that follows your conventions, and anything that isn't done the first time, you're able to catch, iterate, and get to a place of true quality. So, with all of this, are we going to the beach? Yes, afterwards, after this talk, but I don't think you should. I'll tell you why. Well, not outside of React Goa, yes, but, inside of React Goa, yes. Outside of React Goa, even if you have this full automation, I think you'd be doing yourself a disservice. Why? Because with this added time that you have back, you should really be leveling up. This is not the time to go, AI is going to take my job, I'm just going to let it do all of the thinking for me. Once you let AI do your critical thinking for you, you've ceased to be an engineer. Use this time to go and learn the things that really, really matter. This is just as important 5 years ago, before AI, than it is today. You should all know solid principles. Dry, kiss, you're not going to need it. Separation of concerns. These are the things that AI is not at the moment good at. These are the things that you need to teach AI and relentlessly be looking for this in your PR reviews. Just because the builder agent made your PR doesn't mean you should review it with any less rigor than you would a junior or mid-level developer. Your job is to get mid-level developers to first-time approvals and PRs. And senior developers should be making sure that all of these principles are being adhered to. This is what stops you from being taken by AI. And these are the things that I continue to learn myself and I continue to teach my team. And of course, this is not an exhaustive list. We could talk for hours about the greatest books, from Martin Fowler's Refactoring to Clean Code by Uncle Bob. And we could have real discussions about how software should be built. I personally believe we should be reaching for lower complexity and the simplest solution, and be refactoring relentlessly to remove tech debt. Because when you're doing, at the moment, this workflow will do simple tasks. It will do the small tasks and the medium tasks that a junior and mid-level would naturally do. This leaves you the time, yes, for learning, as I've mentioned before, but it also leaves you the time for the things you never seem to get the time to do, like refactoring, like improving your documentation, like doing code reviews and actually teaching in those code reviews. So I realize I'm running out of time, but what's next for the 10x workflow? We're going to be working, and hopefully alongside you guys, when we put it up for the world to see and use, we need to gather metrics. We need to measure every part of this workflow. Where is it taking the most time? How many iteration cycles is it taking from building to reviewing? And how many times is it going back and forth? We can get incredible insights from analyzing this. And once we draw the insights, we can then use AI to help improve the systems that we build with AI. As I mentioned, we can improve, as I mentioned before, we can improve the model. We could use a bigger model for reviews. Because we only have a diff, we can actually use a better model that might cost us a little bit more to actually review the code of a smaller model that's a bit more agile for us. Inference costs are going down by 75% a year, and models are breaking benchmarks consistently and at record pace. So we're going to get to the point where everyone has incredible models, and then it's about designing systems to allow them to operate and us focus on higher and higher level tasks. That's what's happened throughout the development world, whereas we were punching code into punch cards, then we were writing DOS, then we were writing, we just keep adding the syntactic sugar that allow us to think like higher level. We should all be system design thinkers. We should all know the architecture patterns, and that allows us to direct AI effectively and let it get better with us. We should also be optimizing our knowledge base. The knowledge base is the best thinking from your entire team. When we put our knowledge base up, we hope you critique and help us improve it. I've run out of time, but thank you so much for having me. Thank you to the React India team, and thank you for CodeWalnut. Thank you.
React India.